sleep, you're living in a very challenged world. So here's the thing. So I'm just going to go through, and I'm not going to get too deep into sleep because I don't have enough time with this format, but I'll give you a reference to somewhere where you can get some more information on that later. But I'm just going to tell you, first of all, what is sleep? We all know we turn off at night, right? It's sort of, I like to equate it to a phone, right? You plug your phone in at night and it recharges. It's basically what we're doing. We're sort of shutting down and we're recharging. And what happens when you sleep is we go through a sort of what they say 90-minute cycles. It's about 90 minutes, and it's made up of, well, there's more than 3 stages, but these are the 3 main stages in a 90-minute cycle of sleep. The first one is light. Obviously, light sleep is you're barely asleep. Very simple. The next one is deep. The next 30 minutes, you are in a deep sleep. What is that? Just like it sounds, you're unconscious. You're deep. Everything slows down. And then the final 30 minutes of the 90-minute cycle is REM, R-E-M sleep, which I'm sure you've heard. And that's rapid eye movement. That's what that stands for. So that's the 3 cycles, or the 3 stages within the 90-minute cycle. The light, the deep, and the REM. Why is sleep so important? Okay, I just said at the beginning, if you don't get enough, you're living in a deficit. And there's what we call a sleep deficit, which probably most people have, because what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. And I believe the average American in one study that I read gets about 6.7, which is way more than I thought. Okay, so I got to give them credit on that. But if you're not getting 7 to 9, I know a lot of people, when I ask them, I'm like, that's one of my first questions with my clients. I'm like, oh, how do you sleep? And when I hear, oh, I have challenges, I'm like, we got to tackle this first. But I love it when someone's like, oh, I sleep great. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's move on. So 7 to 9 hours. If you're not getting 7 to 9, you might want to do something. And I'll tell you why. So first of all, going back to the stages, in these 7 to 9 hours, the 7 to 9 hours of what we're supposed to get, when you go into your deep sleep, that is when your body recovers. Okay, that is when the physical body, so if you worked out hard that day, you tore some, muscles apart, which are going to come back together, repair, and be stronger. That's what happens when you work out, is you need some good deep sleep. So that's the first thing that is going to happen, is that deep sleep comes in and your body repairs itself. Then the REM sleep. That is when the mind repairs itself, and that usually happens later on in the sleep. So again, if you're not getting the 7 to 9 hours, you're not getting enough REM sleep. And so your body might heal itself, but your brain is not as efficient as it should be. And the way I like to say that is, at night, the stuff you learned that day or what you did, at night when you're sleeping in your REM sleep, it's like a file cabinet. It's filing away the right information in the right spot. And if you don't get enough sleep, they didn't go in the right spot. And so you wake up the next day and you have not learned all of the stuff that you were hoping, because you're not going to remember it because it didn't get filed away. I hope that made sense. An analogy I actually use with that is golf, a golf swing, right? A golf swing is actually pretty complicated when you break it down. So if you're working on part of your game, you're working on your swing one day and you're out there on the range for an hour or two, and then you're like, I got it. You figured it out and you're hitting the ball perfect. If you go to sleep that night and you don't get enough sleep and you don't get to the end where the REM happens and then it files away, the golf swing that you had just learned, you're going to wake up the next day and you're in big trouble. It's not going to equate. You're not going to go right back in, and that file probably didn't get put in the right place. So that perfect swing that you had the day before isn't going to be there. So that's an analogy I use with that. So that's just another reason why getting 7 to 9 hours is so much sleep, so you can make sure that you get your brain recovered, because your brain is the most important part of you, in my opinion, because it controls everything else. And I talk to people like, how much sleep you get? Oh, I get 5.5 hours. I'm like, okay. And they're like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I feel good. Yeah, you're good because that is what you know. That is your normal. We all live in our own normals, right? And they're all different for everybody. And so my brother's a great example. He's a teacher. He's got 4 kids. And I asked him one time, I said, hey, how much sleep do you get? And I think he said 5 or 6 hours. And I was like, oh, you need more. And he's like, no, I'm fine. Well, what happened, I think it was a couple days later, he actually kind of got a cold or got sick or whatever. And so I said, go to sleep, get sleep. So he got a bunch of sleep, and then he woke up the next day and he's like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. Because what happens is you don't know what you don't know. So if you're getting 5 or 6 hours and you think you're running at 100%, no, you're probably running at about 65, maybe 70% of your potential. If you get that 7 to 9 hours, what you're supposed to do, say you wake up without an alarm and you wake up naturally at 7.5 hours, that's what you were supposed to get. And you will be running closer to 100%. So let's just say 65% to 90%. What would you rather run on? 90%. You're going to be much more efficient. You're going to get more done. Things are going to be easier. Who doesn't want that in life every single day? So that's the importance of why to get good sleep. So here's the thing. How do you do it? Sleep disorders are everywhere. I mean, me personally, I've always had sleep issues. Always. Like, my brain at night, for some reason, it hits the pillow and it just starts going. And I have trouble getting to sleep. I always have. I'm much better now, but it's still, there still can be challenges. And I've had insomnia nights where, that's one of those, and then your brain keeps going even more, right? If you can't fall asleep when you're supposed to, now you're starting to worry like, oh no, is this going to be an all-nighter where I'm not going to be able to fall asleep because my brain won't turn off? Like, that's my fear. That is, I'll be honest, that's one of my fears. So anyway, how do you do it? How do you make sure to get good sleep? Well, there's some simple things that you can do, obviously, like stimulants. You don't want to drink caffeine, even though I do know some people that are like, oh, I can drink caffeine at 11 at night and go right to sleep. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but that's not normal. Anyway, caffeine, stimulants, stay away from that, right? After, say, noon or whatever. Another thing is the screen time, right? We watch TV or we're on our phones or whatever. When you have the blue light coming in from those screens, your brain does not understand that from sunlight. So it thinks it's still light out. So the melatonin's not going to kick in, which is the hormone that allows you to sleep good. So you want to get off your screens. And if you don't, I'll be honest, I like to go to bed, after watching, a Netflix, right, show. So I've tried to read, it doesn't work for me. If you can read, great. I can't, I just haven't been able to do it. So I watch Netflix, but what I did was I went out and bought blue light blocker glasses, and they work amazing. I mean, it was the first night, and I was like, oh, these things work. Because literally 5 minutes after I put them on, I can already see just feel my eyelids starting to droop. So to get rid of the screen, if you have to look at your screen and that's your routine and that's what you're doing, get some blue light blocker glasses. You can get them anywhere from 20 to, I think mine were like $60, but I'm telling you, it was a great investment. The one thing that I've done, this is the third thing. This is the one thing that I've done that has really, really helped me get consistent sleep, and that's a routine. If you can build a nightly routine that basically starts to signal to your brain, hey, it's getting ready to go to bed, then that's what you want to do. And so just like a morning routine gets you ready for the day, a nightly routine will get you ready to go to bed. And so whatever that is for you, whether it's take a shower, brush your teeth, whatever it is you do at the end, make sure you're doing them in the same sequence, and then you get into bed, and as you get into this routine, it'll start to signal to your brain, oh, it's sleepy time. Also, obviously, if you can do other things, like I said, get the blue light blockers, stop the caffeine. 2 other things that I do, I use a white noise machine. This is key for me because I believe I'm a light sleeper where just little noises will wake me up. So a white noise, I started sleeping with a fan, which was my white noise at the beginning. Now I just have white noise machines, but probably 20 years ago, and it was night and day. It was amazing when I found this because I couldn't hear anything, like no other noises. Like, this is the white noise, so it puts me right to sleep. And then I also black out my room. Like, I make sure that, because I'll be honest, I'm a night guy. I don't wake up at the crack of dawn, so sunlight comes in, it's naturally going to sort of wake you up. That's not me. I want to keep sleeping. So I black out my room. Just a couple things that I do. So that's it. That's sleep. Sleep is extremely important. If you can get your sleep down, I'm telling you, your life will increase in so many aspects. I mean, obviously mood, so many, health, mood, everything. All right. So that was just kind of an overview. If you really want to get deep and really learn a lot, there's a guy named Shawn Stevenson. He actually has a podcast called The Model Health Show, and I recommend this podcast. It was one of the first ones that I really got into, possibly my favorite. I just love this dude. he's so good at what he does, his storytelling, but he also backs everything up with science, which I'm all about. I love it. So Shawn Stevenson and the Model Health Show, go check his podcast out. He also wrote a book called Sleep Smarter. I'll have these links down below if you want to check it out, but you'll get much more, information.